Hey everyone, Wolf Lord Rho here. Today we continue our series making a case for each and every Primarch being the greatest, with the Lord of Drakes, Vulkan. A general spoiler warning to begin, as today we will be referencing events from across the Warhammer 40k universe. So you have been warned, and with that said, let's just jump straight in. Now, if this was a popularity contest, I don't think the big guy would be having much of a problem here. I mean, who doesn't love the big man Vulkan? And honestly, there's a lot of reasons to love him, and a lot of reasons why he could rightly be called the greatest Primarch. Let's begin with the fact that he, of all his brothers, truly represents humanity. It was in Vulkan that the Emperor poured all his purest virtues, creating a Primarch who cared for mankind unlike any other, who would do whatever it took to protect a single life, who would never see one as more important than any other. And it was Vulkan who, in a lot of ways, was not only the example to his brothers of what a Primarch should ultimately be for mankind, but what mankind themselves should strive to be. It was Vulkan who the Emperor trusted with perhaps the most devastating secret of all, the Talisman of 7 Hammers, the failsafe and doomsday device for the Golden Throne, should terror truly be lost. It was on Vulkan's shoulders that the burden was placed about triggering the device, destroying the birthplace and cradle of mankind to deny chaos its victory. Billions of lives eradicated, a galactic empire lost in an instant. And it was Vulkan who was chosen for this. Not because the Emperor favoured him, though he undoubtedly was fond of Vulkan, but because Vulkan alone could truly appreciate the cost of it, the scale of the horror and sacrifice. As the Emperor said himself, that is why it had to be you. In a breed of demigod warrior generals, created to claim a galaxy in the name of mankind, it is clear that the Emperor gave Vulkan something that no other Primarch truly possessed. Not as entirely. And so perhaps it's ironic that the Emperor ingrained perpetuality into Vulkan as well, bestowing his perpetual nature into the Lord of Drakes, the gift of rebirth and immortality. However, I don't think it is. I think it's actually quite clearly because the Emperor knew Vulkan was the one Primarch who had to always be there, because of that humanity. Vulkan had to be there to be the check for his brothers, the conscience if you will. The Emperor knew the gifts and personalities he gave his sons would push them ever onward, striving for ever greater achievements, but that in that ascendancy and evolution away from mankind, they would never quite truly appreciate their view, and that perhaps in that decisions would be made wrongly, dare I say lives spent needlessly. Vulkan would never allow that to transpire, and if or when it ever became a possibility, he would feel the need to do something about it. And that is why he always had to be around, why he alone was a perpetual, why the Emperor gave none of his brothers the same gift. I mean, think about it here. The Emperor himself was a perpetual. He clearly had the ability to gift the same nature to his sons, and yet it wasn't his executioner he gave it to. The son he knew would be loyal to him no matter what. It wasn't his Praetorian. It wasn't the charismatic, ever-loved Sanguinius. Not even his empire builder Guilliman, or Magnus the Red, who would man the Golden Throne. It was to Vulkan, and that is extremely telling of Vulkan's importance. It's extremely telling of how the Emperor viewed the Primarchs. And my word, did Vulkan prove his worthiness. Having witnessed his legion decimated on Istvan, Vulkan would suffer horrendous torture at the hands of his brother Kurz, living through countless deaths one after the other. Yet still upon his escape, he would refuse to end his brother. And he would be pushed into the boundaries of insanity and face a true death, where he would be eventually restored upon Nocturne, and he would embark on an arduous quest across the galaxy, through the webway, to reach the throne world, where he would shoulder the burden of the talisman's true purpose, and be the Emperor's chosen guardian to stand before the Golden Throne, where he would face and defeat Magnus the Red upon the throne's summit, mere feet away from the Emperor himself, where he would then enter into the webway once again at the height of the siege to prevent the now demon-ascended Magnus from opening the portal to Terra. And this sacrifice for me cannot be overstated. Vulkan fought his way through the demonic horde assailing the portal, faced death 100, 1,000 times over at the hands of his brother Magnus, and still would not give in. He kept going at him again and again until he broke the Cyclops once more, banishing him back to the warp. And he wasn't even done there. In undoubtedly one of the most poignant and simply epic moments of the entire heresy, when Malcador sended out the call for all of the Primarchs to return to the throne for the Emperor's final gambit, he found Vulkan, a mere skeletal corpse, shuffling his way back to Terra through the webway. His heart exploded as he fell dead once again, and yet again, somehow, refusing to give up, Vulkan just clawed his way back to life and continued on. He couldn't even speak to answer Malcador's call, but the Sigillite just knew that Vulkan was coming. And it was as Vulkan entered the throne room that Malcador realized Vulkan had spent entire lifetimes making his way through and across the webway. We're talking centuries upon centuries here, and most likely death after death. And yet he never gave up. He never doubted. He simply kept coming to be by his father's side, because that's what the Emperor needed him to do. Honestly, I cannot wait to discuss that in depth, because just when you thought you couldn't love Vulkan anymore, you got that moment. And my god, you just can't help but love Vulkan. So we have all of that selfless sacrifice, all of the effort given for his father, for mankind, and we haven't even discussed the fact he was found 1500 years after the heresy, still fighting for the people, out on some nameless world within the Imperium, not caring one iota for any glory, any recognition. That he returned for the war against the beast and led the crusade to Ulanor, gave his all once again to take the beast out. I know we talk a lot of Sanguinius's sacrifice, and rightly so. However, Vulkan's entire journey was nothing but sacrifice. And it shouldn't be dismissed because he is a perpetual. Because do you really think he wouldn't have done everything all the same if he wasn't? Vulkan is unique amongst the Primarchs. He is the most human of them. It's no coincidence he was made to be a perpetual. He was intended and is different to the rest of his kin. And his story speaks for itself. If there's anyone that deserves to be named as the greatest of all the Primarchs, it's most certainly the Lord of Drakes, Vulkan. But as always everyone, what do you think? Does Vulkan's legacy speak for itself? Does his continued sacrifice over and over again showcase a commitment that no other Primarch can compete with? Should his journey be diminished because he is a perpetual? Or does it actually make it greater, showing that Vulkan went through and gave more than any other? Is the fact that the Emperor made Vulkan a perpetual alone the real evidence we need to show that he was the most important, and thus the greatest of all the Primarchs? As always everyone, leave your thoughts in the comments below. Huge thank you to all my subscribers, your support truly means a lot to me, it really does. If you're new, please consider subscribing to help the channel grow. And if you enjoyed this particular vid, then why not drop a like on it too. But with that said, I am off, and I'll see you all again real soon.